next time. So this is sometime when you talk about leadership, you can get to the top, but you can also get brought down very quickly in terms of democracy. Yes, yes, Mr. Singh.
Nothing, Chairman. I'm Bawang Singh from Mutiara International Grammar School, Kuala Lumpur. I beg to differ with some of the observations made by the members of the panel when they said that leaders are made. I do not agree with that. I feel that leaders are born. They are born with an innate quality, characteristic, and the ability to be able to lead. You cannot make a leader. Look at people like Hitler, Mussolini, Saddam, for example. Nobody taught them to lead the way they led. It was through their guile, their intrigue, their ability to create emotions in people that made them choose them as their leaders. And look at Tun Mahathir for himself. Nobody knew who Tun Mahathir was until he came up with his book, The Malay Dilemma. It is only then that they realized that there was somebody in a place who was able to bring forward the feelings, the shortcomings of the Malay community to the attention of the leaders. Obama was not elected because they wanted somebody new, somebody different. He was elected, he fought against the whites, a white leadership created, who was made to stand by the Republicans. He fought them, all right? And they selected him not because they wanted a black man. They wanted him because he had ideas that they felt that he could use for the betterment of the people of America, not because he was black. Now, I think we have deviated from the topic for discussion today. We are talking about creating leaders. This is not the topic for today. The topic for today is the role of education in the leadership development. What is the role of education? How can education, the present education system, help to create the type of leaders that we want? And I've been a teacher for the last almost half a century, I would say. I started teaching in 1961, all right? And I come from an entirely different school of thought of the teaching profession. Those were the days when teachers led not by telling you what to do, but by showing this is what to do, by example. It was leadership by example. Teachers went out of the way to create the time for their students, inside and outside the classrooms. In the sports field, in volunteerism, where is volunteerism today? We were sent, all right, you go to this Ulu place, you go to Pakan, you go to Lipes and all that, and we went. There's no question asked about being sent to Ulu school. Where we go to school, walking 3-4 miles, or even going by boat along the Jalai River to Jarantot. Nobody asked any question, nobody asked for any extra allowances. What is happening today to our teaching profession? They are not prepared to do anything beyond what is given to them in their timetable for the number of periods that they are supposed to teach. That's all they want to teach. Nothing more than that, nothing more extra after school hours. Now, is this a type of people who are going to treat or train our students to be leaders when they themselves do not show the proper qualities of leadership? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. May I ask Dr. Muhammad to respond?
Thank you for the comments. You're right. Those days, we feel that it's better than today. See, my wife is a teacher. I won't answer this, I will respond if she's here. But I've been complaining to her. What's happening to education now? What's happening to teachers? And in Malaysia, you see, you have, we don't have a uniform ethos. There's no uniformity of ethos in the teaching profession. Teachers in the urban areas will have one worldview, in the rural areas we have another worldview. In the urban areas of Klang Valley, we have a certain structured, a certain discipline. In the non-urban areas, you have another form of discipline. So I don't know whether these these are not too good for the future. But again, we have to look at the changes in the society and the so-called globalization where values change. But the thing is that the recruitment and the profession of teaching, the teaching profession itself needs to be reconstituted. I think this is where we can look at a change in the structure of the profession, in the recognition of the profession, in the remuneration of the profession, and who we take. Because the best and the brightest do not become teachers. This is the problem. If we have the best and the brightest becoming teachers, perhaps things would be different from before.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Since I'm a cikgu, I think I'm quite bright. Well, I think you're all falling asleep. I might ask you to stand up again and clap. No, the thing is this. I think you cannot just blame the teachers or the school. It's also parents, you know. I'm lucky because I run a private school. So if a child has done something wrong and I've got to take action, you know, I can expel the child, I can do anything I want to do with the child if he has done something wrong, like, you know, fighting or whatever it is, you know. But they can't do that in the government school, so that's the problem there. So I always tell my parents, you know, you must understand what I'm doing here. This is my philosophy of education, and this is what I do. This is the penance system. If you don't agree with me, you have to take your child out. But if you want me to educate your child properly and bring him up, because you see, parents are very busy now, you know, so they must trust the school, that we want to do the best for the child. But when parents interfere, teachers after a while, they give up. I'm sure your wife come home and say, oh, can't be bothered anymore, because, you know, parents, they think that teachers are their nannies, honestly. Yes, they think that, oh, fail pun, cikgu yang salah. Jahat pun, cikgu yang salah. Semua cikgu yang salah. Dia tak salah. Anak tu pun tak salah. Oh, my son never tell lies. Oh my goodness me. Yes, I've heard this. You know, you see, I think society, you know, we have changed from before. Tan Sri, you can slap somebody before, right? Yeah. You can make them eat bread and not rice. But now, we can't do this anymore. I think society as a whole must change. You know, because if you're too busy, okay then, trust the school. Like before, masa dulu kan, bapak kita kata, ini anak saya, you educate my child as long as you don't break his legs. Or blind him or something like that, right? Yes. But now you cannot touch the child, you can't even say anything to the child. You know? So that's also a problem with teachers. But I think you all must understand that you go to university, it is not that you go to university, you come out, you're already a fantastic manager, for instance. You take up banking, you come out, oh, you're already a fantastic banker. You take up medicine, you come out, you're a fantastic doctor. No. You go to university for an intellectual discipline where you learn to solve problems. So when you go to work, there'll be problems all the time. And what must you do? Use your head, think, and solve problems. That's what it is. Actually, it's not just in the education arena that people are complaining that teachers are no good, blah, 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 blah. Like what Tan Sri said just now. Everybody, they consider themselves as experts in education, right? So that's why they say, oh, cikgu tak betul, sekolah tak bagus, all the time blame the cikgu and all that. But if you were to talk to other people, you know, you talk to bankers, you talk to business people, contractors, developers, they also complain about the young people. The young people now don't want to think, don't know how to solve problems. You have to train them. And the company said, look, it's not my job to train you. You're supposed to do here and do, you come in to this job, you're supposed to start doing the job. I have a travel company as well, you know. I cannot train you, you have to think. This client wants to go from this destination to that destination at the cheapest fare, fastest or whatever it is. You have to find that out. You have to learn to solve that problem on the internet. I cannot train you to tell you now, look, this fellow wants to go from here to here. You have to look up this, look up. No. You are supposed to already know how to solve problems in university. Intellectual discipline. to be resourceful, to think lah, how to solve problems. You know, I have got friends working in several businesses. They all complain that young people, one, too lazy to work, right? Two, they ask first, how much do I get? When people come to me, because I don't only run a school, I have a development company, I also have a travel company and so on and so forth. When they ask me, how much do I get? I said, I don't know how much you get, but I know how much you will start with. But how much you are going to get at the end of it depends on you. Because you decide how much you're worth. So if you go to the workplace, you're lazy, you don't go that extra mile, you don't read more about your job, your company, the vision of your company, your vision of the company, and how you can bring your company to greater heights, then, children, you're out of business, of life. Yes, you must learn English, you know, go for English classes. How many of you do that? How many of you read really? How many of you? You know, my mother is 86 years old. My father passed away 2 years ago at the age of 90. My father was in the police force. So at that time, his senior officers were all maksalis, okay? So my mother, you know, they have mess nights in those days. You know, they go dancing and they have champagne, you know, that sort of thing. So my mother had to mix with, you know, have social evenings with the maksalis wives, okay? The ladies, you know. So of course she had to learn English. How did she learn English? She's 86 now, mind you. Those days, she took night classes to learn English. Correspondence course to learn English on her own. You see, young people now don't want to learn English. There are even principals of schools tell them, "Hey, ini bahasa syaitan. Tak boleh belajar cakap Inggeris." No, that's true, you know. So why not? Look, just now YAB mentioned about the Chinese, you know. Before the Olympics, 200 million of them learn English. That was before 2008. Now it's 2010. I can tell you there are more Chinese now speaking English than English people speaking English. It's true. And we here, we don't want to speak English. Why? Yes, you must master this language. How do you master the language? You must practice, speak it, hear it, say it, read it every day. Every day. Bila tengok DVD itu, masuk subtitle itu, the English subtitle. Tak faham tu baca. Hopefully the subtitles are correct lah. Sometimes it's not correct. When it's hot chicks, dia kata ayam panas.
Mr. Palwan Singh, the question whether leaders are born or are made is very big question. You can argue it until the cows come home. Yeah. But whatever it is, to be a good leader, you must keep on educating yourself from A to Z or beyond Z. Okay, that's number one. And number two, in terms of teachers, this is always a worrying part. I don't know I went first to school in 1936 or 35, Malay school for 3 years. Then I went to the English school and so on. And I tell you, and I agree with you wholly, maybe those days there were no distraction. The teachers were fully committed to see that their student pass the overseas school certificate or every year examination. And I don't want to touch, this is a very sensitive issue now, whether we should abolish UPSR, PMR, that's another issue. I'm not going to touch it. I think we better don't touch it tonight, otherwise it'll be very difficult. So the question of teachers today, I do not know, but perhaps those days and your days and our days, maybe the number of people, school children are less. I know when I was coming back from UK, 1957, the population only about 7 or 8 million. And then of course, we grow up, and then we have Sarawak and Sabah joining us. So now it's about 27 million. So these are the issues. So we are not, in a way, finding it difficult to keep up with the population increase, all our services. So if you look at it, everybody now I should say, not in the mood of complaint, it's not fair. Everybody says nothing is good in this world now, in Malaysia. But I think it's not fair. When you think about it, during my time in 1949, the first University of Malaya was created, there was only a few Malaysian or Singaporean who are professors. But today, Malaysian professors alone in Malaysia must run up to at least about 600 or 700 professors. They are the people who got the PhDs and so on. So we have made a lot of progress. But with all this progress, because there's so much services required, transport and education, I don't think we are really very good. To be honest, I did suggest to the minister at lunchtime. I said, sir, is it time maybe we consider some sort of an education commission to say where we are going in the next 20 years? Maybe we should copy Datin Farida's way of doing things, you know. These are the things that we should. In fact, the best thing to do as far as education is concerned should be with the professional people in education. Now, fortunately, I will be out because I was involved in education, but I never have a certificate in education, diploma in education, nothing of that sort. But I was an MCS officer, being given the task to develop the then Dewan Latihan Rida until today. It happens to be UITM. But said, I never had any educational psychology qualification, except I was trained in economic, statistics, agriculture, and business. So I think today we are really facing a very big problem with 27 million population, not to speak about the foreign national in our country. These are the issues. And unfortunately, and I agree with Datin Frida, because today, today we don't talk about competition among ourselves. We are competing with all over the world. So nothing short of English as the medium of instruction. And this is where I was shot at, but I got a lot of guts and courage to see that ITM until today, I hope today, until today, the medium of instruction is in the English. And that's why if you see a lot of top executives today, mostly among the Bumiputra, are chap who are educated from the, what we call the group of Institute Technology Mara.
Okay, hi, my name is Joseph. I'm from Monash University. Okay, first of all, I want to ask a small question. Dr. Farida, sorry, Datin Farida.
You can call me doctor.
Okay, you mentioned that you started, I've heard about the Cempaka schools all over. They have a very good reputation, and I truly respect you for that. Now, just a small question. You said that you began your endeavor initially because your children started reading early. Okay, so the reason why you started your own school was because your child started reading early. Now, the question is that school starts at 6 or 7. You could have done a program from 3 to 7, but you did not. You continued all throughout high school and primary school and so on. Question is why? So basically, I'm trying to point out here is that was there a reason why you chose to replace the current education system or rather the high school system instead of just supplementing it by providing an early childhood program? Is there a specific reason here?
Actually, I started because I've got 5 sons. So we started actually kindergarten, standard 1, standard 2, standard 3. I started service actually. You know, macam Tan Sri juga, you know. Tan Sri came from the Malaysian Civil Service. In those days, that's the crème de la crème of service, yeah, Tan Sri? I must say this because I also came from that service. I started my career as a diplomat actually, you know, and then went on to several ministries. And then later on, 24 hours, resigned to open a school and a stockbroking firm. See? Wah, thinking stockbroking banyak duit kan? But that didn't work out because that was not my love. Okay? That's not what I love to do. So I gave that up and stuck to education. But I had to go on. I cannot go just early education because you know why? My sons got to grow up. My sons got to go to primary school, secondary school. So we went on and on and on, you know. And that's why. And I started because I wanted Rizal, that was son number 1. He was too young to go to school then. they wouldn't accept him, although he could read and write at that moment, at that time. So I started at school, kindergarten, standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, so that I can, put him up and then put his brothers as well in to school, And that's how I started. And then at that time, you must remember, a long time ago, private schools were for dropouts. Because many years ago, the system was that if you do not pass an exam or a level, you cannot be promoted. Yeah, Tan Sri? Yes, even in standard 1 or standard 2, you can be a dropout. You can be retained. You cannot be promoted. So in those days, they had schools for dropouts. Those are private schools. But when I started it in 1983, then private schools took a different shape, It became a sort of a, people like to call it elitist. I don't like to call it elitist, but I would like to say that it is a more wholesome kind of school. And actually what happened was, this might be boring for all of you, but when I started, I started the school at 8 o'clock because I thought that I could get parents who've got to send their children, they go to work, then they can send their children. So I've got a school that started at 8 and finished at 3:30. So by the time the children go home, the parents will be home after work. It's a whole day school. And I think that was fantastic. And for me, it was very good because in the morning, 7 o'clock, I go to school. At 10 o'clock, I've got to go to the market, to the stockbroking market. 10 o'clock, opens at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock it closes, 1 to 3 I'm back in school, and then it opens again at 3, at 4 finish. So I was working up and down, and then when the market is hot, I work until about 11, 12 o'clock in midnight, until after a while, then we gave up the broking firm. So I had to go on because my children then, they had to go to primary, secondary school. I didn't stick to the preschool.
Okay. Question is, why didn't you enroll your sons after they were appropriate age in a government high school or government primary school? That's the question.
Because I had my own vision of how to educate my own children.
So this is where I would like to just comment. Okay, the issue is that I'm a product of that government school. Okay, I'm now studying Monash University. Came from Form 6. Regarding your regarding, let me see. I won't be able to say that. Okay, so basically, when
you're trying to ask me, you're trying to trap me to say the government school is no good, is it?
No, I'm trying to. I'm trying to point out that perhaps maybe that is really what's the problem here is that there are problems. There certainly are problems in the government school, but throughout this entire discourse, we have not quite admitted them.
I don't think so. You see, we have 10,000 schools. Don't tell me all those schools are not good, You have 10,000 schools, about how many million children in schools. I'm sure there must be some great teachers out there, great children. You, for an example, came from that product, you're a product of those, of a government school. I don't think we should just have a blanket thing and say that all the government schools are no good. Now, I stuck to it because I enjoyed what I did, and I'm still enjoying it. It's my passion. And mind you, if you start a private school, you still have to follow the government curriculum.
Yeah.
You have to follow, because otherwise they can deregister you. But what I did was I made the hours longer. I can teach them more. I can do other things. Like, for instance, in my school, performing arts is actually compulsory. Certain subjects that's not taught in the government, I've made it compulsory in the school because we've got longer hours and so on and so forth.
So basically, I'll just give a small comment here. My conclusion is this: that the current school system produces two types of people: those who cannot think or don't think very much, and those who think. Okay, so if I presume myself to be a thinker, for example, what happens is that many of these people become cynical. Okay, so I'm saying that I'm from a young generation, a product of this society, of this education system, and I'm, as many of them are, we are all very cynical of the system. Now the question is this. For example, let's say I come up here and say, this system is not good. This is a product of discourse leadership foundation. Would we really say in our discourse output that, hey, there's something wrong with our Ministry of Education here? I mean, are we really willing to stick up to it? The question is that our education system, as it is, stifles critical thinking. That is
All right.
my view. Sorry.
All right. You see, I run 2 types of schools. I also run the national curriculum schools, and I also run an international school following the British curriculum. Now, I can tell you, in science and maths, the Malaysian curriculum is better than the IGCSE curriculum, the British curriculum. Yes, because my students who have finished SPM and they go on to do A-levels, they can do better. I'm sure you're one of those, right? After SPM, you did A-levels or something like that, no?
STPM. STPM.
STPM, oh, better still. Yes, STPM is better
Very
still.
better, yeah.
No, the thing is this, we must not undervalue our system. It's not the system, it's the people that makes it such. Like for instance, you want to teach English. Why must you just stick to your textbook? You can go beyond that. The teacher can do more than that. When you come out of school, you're not just the product of the school. You're also your own product, how you develop yourself, how your family brought you up. That's important as well. That's why we must tell young people, when you graduate, you get married, this is your job, to bring up good families, thinking families, with good values, with good discipline.
Right.
Yes, I know young
And
people now are impatient. They see only the bad things. They don't say, okay, what can I do to make it better?
Okay.
What
Thank
ideas
you.
can I give?
Yeah.
What ideas can you give the Ministry of Education? Instead of saying, oh, no good, no good, no good, no good. Have you written to the minister? Have you said something? Have you written to the editor, news editor? Something about education? Maybe you've got a fantastic idea. Even to this foundation, I'm sure they will welcome your ideas. So young people, give your ideas.
Okay.
Voice out. Don't just say, no good, no good, no good, no good.
Right. Tan Sri has a little bit more. and
Can
then
I
we need
just
to end
add
the
to
session.
your comments?
Sure.
I think it's the most important thing. In the school, you have a set syllabus. So as far as the teacher is concerned, as long I met my syllabus, what I'm supposed to do, I've
Yes.
done my work. Yeah. But I think the rest of it, this is where, as a student, when Datin Farida think that you should think, is that you start reading more books on your own. You should do additional. I remember when I was at Singapore in my first year, and I had people from Chung Ling High School. There's a dual algebra, if you know. So when I checked the 20, so when he came, he told, Arshad, I've done all these 20, Whereas I also did dual algebra, but only about 5 or 6, the first 5, 6 solutions. So I think the schools, universities, any higher educational institution will give you a show the guide. And this is where Datin Farida said, you must think and have it a bit more. Definitely, don't depend so much on the school. Go out of the syllabus. Go out of the syllabus. If you're asked to read Shakespeare, for example, Macbeth, if you do English literature, read King Lear, King Othello, Julius Caesar, and so on. And this is where you're able to compare. And I said, most of us, after graduating, how many of us have keep on reading books? And how many of us, after finishing school cert or STPM, keep on reading? And I think this is important. The new economic model, what they call education for education, so umur hayat. As long you live, keep on
Long life.
long life education, and that's the most important thing. And I know you are doing it, which is very good actually. And even Mr. Balwan, we keep on